Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Jim Carrey Project. This is the project where we are going through all of Jim Carrey's movies in chronological order. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me, as always, is
Carrie Grant.
And today we just finished watching the incredible Burt Wonderstone. Ooh.
Should be like stone.
We're going to put in the after effects on this one. This is 2013. It's directed by Don Scardino. Screenplay John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. A couple people wrote the story or produced the story, but then it was stars Steve Carrey, Steve Buscemi, Olivia Wilde, Steve Carrell, Steve Carrell, Jim Carrey,
yeah.
Steve Carell, Steve Buschemi, Olivia Wilde, Alan Arkin, James Gandolfini, and Jim Carrey.
There you go.
So that's how that goes. So,
what'd you think?
Yeah, what'd you think? What'd you think? Magical.
I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
It felt a little long.
Contrite? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Long.
It grew on me. On me.
Yeah.
I really was not enjoying it the first half. But the second half, I don't know why. I accepted it is for what it is.
Yeah.
Or maybe the characters started getting better. I don't know. But
I think I know where where that shift is, and I think I have that as a note that we can talk about. But okay. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, like where that shift is. So
I don't think I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
But I didn't completely hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of one of those.
Yeah, and it's not the worst thing you've ever seen, but it's not something that you need to really pay attention to and see if ever watch again. So if you guys don't know what it is a movie about Steve Carell and Steve Buscemi as these famous magicians in Vegas, but their act gets stale. They try and compete with Jim Carrey's character, who's the Chris Angel, David Blaine, mind freak kind of guy.
Yeah.
And it goes terribly wrong, and they become not friends, and then they have a reconciliation, and spoilers, they become the famous magicians again that they once were. Spoilers.
Pretty simple story, honestly.
Yeah, it is. There is a change. So like
how do you feel?
I felt like it was a convoluted mess from the beginning. It was maybe not a convoluted mess, but it was just like it took so long to get started. Like there's all this backstory about this kid and how he found magic, but also like it wasn't really a good necessarily like telling of how magic played such an effect on his life. He was a latchkey kid, living at home and by himself and had to take care of himself basically, but he like... You
wanted more of that?
It was already so long in the morning. I wanted less of that.
In the beginning, yeah.
Like, they set up him finding the magic trip, then becoming friends, and then the relationship, but it's like it never really seemed like it really didn't create an actual relationship. It was just like luck of the draw kind of thing.
I didn't mind that part. I don't mind the backstory with the kids and why they're friends. It kind of it comes into play that they didn't have any other friends and they had each other, and then doesn't really explain a whole lot why they weren't getting along right before it kind of ended, except that they've just been doing it so long and they haven't really changed anything. I guess they're just bored and just tired of each other a bit. Yeah,
it's Steve Carell. Definitely his character is very much like jaded and pretentious and like he's so full of himself. But it's like for a kid who grew up in this terrible thing and like only had his magician friend kid, that doesn't seem to make sense of how he would end up being such a pretentious ass.
Yeah, well, I feel like that. Like I didn't mind the backstory. It wasn't all that long, honestly. That was just a few minutes. But between then and their falling out, I mean, literally, we almost saw a whole like magic show at one point. It was too long.
Yeah,
it did introduce the Olivia Wilde character in that, but they could have cut that down a bit. I just thought by the time they had the falling out, and then that is, then they kind of go their separate ways, and then eventually that's how they both grow, I guess, as people. That part was really long, and like you said, especially Steve Carell's character is he's
so hard to watch.
And he's so pretentious and everything that it's a character you're just like you get sick of. I mean, you're supposed to get sick of him, but it's just so much of that time, and you're like, I don't think I can watch it. And I even said once we started watching, it's like, I've seen this before. And I go, I think I probably stopped it because I got annoyed.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they got to the point when they fell out of the box. That was the last thing I remembered. And then I didn't remember anything after that. And that's when the story got better. If I would have maybe stuck through it the first time, maybe I would have liked it.
Once something happened to like cause them to change the world in which they really live in is when it definitely like picked up. And I mean, you get Jim Carrey in there about, it seemed like halfway through the movie, like 40, it seemed like it was 40 minutes in or something, or 20 or 30, but it, like...
They introduced him a little earlier than that, but he's not, there's not much of him.
He's not an antagonist in it very much. I think this is the first role we've seen him.
I don't have a whole lot of him, yeah.
I think is like the first role where he is playing much more of an antagonist than a protagonist.
Oh, totally,
in this one,
yeah.
He's just kind of the heel, but he's also, Burt Wonderstone is kind of his own antagonist, where he's not quite enough of himself. So there was a lot going on, and before we ever get Jim Carrey, which is kind of sad, but it's also not his movie. This was definitely Steve Carell and Steve Buschemi's movie.
Yeah.
I really think when Olivia Wilde came on,
such a good cast though.
I know,
like it had so much potential.
Yeah.
And I laughed out loud several times.
Yeah.
I thought they had some really good like one-liners, some really good sort of like bits that I thought were super funny.
Yeah.
So it had so much, and then the cast was so good.
Yeah.
It just fell a little short on, I'm not even sure, timing and maybe the character development.
So I think I have the note that you've seen Tropic Thunder, right?
I don't think I've seen that all the way through either.
So Tropic Thunder, it's Robert Downey Jr. He plays a character who is so method that he literally gets skin pigmentation coloring.
Yeah.
But then Ben Stiller plays this, the action star who tries to do the special needs kid movie, the retarded kid movie. And it's called Simple Jack, right? Okay. And it bombs. It's a box.
Sounds terrible.
It's the whole premise
Yes.
it sounds terrible, and it kind of ends up being terrible, but like it's a box office bomb in this world of Tropic Thunder.
Okay, yes.
At one point, Robert Downey Jr. is talking to him, and it's like there was a whole scene about this, and people were all up in arms about the use of the term retard, and it's to be understandable that does not carry positive connotation with it. But the whole bit is that Robert Downey Jr. is telling Ben Stiller he's never go full retard. Never go so far into the special needs character that you lose yourself as an actor. You lose the humanity behind what makes, like Forrest Gump, he has humanity because he's endearing. Okay,
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a bunch of other people have done those same kind of movies, and like they're award winning, they're endearing and stuff.
Yes.
This is a movie where Steve Carell goes full whatever.
Yeah.
He is such.
It's not that.
We lose anything that we love about Steve Carell in this pretentious a-hole of a character, and so it makes it unbearable to watch
for the first half.
Yes. As soon as he meets
Alan Arkin's character,
there is a major shift.
Yes.
And the movie,
he immediately becomes more likable. Even though he's still a bit pretentious and still a little bit of an ass, you immediately start liking him better.
And it's like, I'm kind of like, I'm goosebumpy about it because it was such an emotional, heartfelt, like you feel it when you're watching. You're like, oh, this is why it's a good movie. Like, this is a moment where I want.
But see, would you change how he was before? Because you want that switch.
I would reel it in a little bit. I think he, as an actor, was doing what I think he thought would be the best to make people hate him. But you also have to have some humanity in it. It's just a caricature of these characters. I
think they did it. I mean, it's definitely purposeful.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to watch him in the beginning. And I don't know if I'd actually change it. I'd just shorten it way so you don't have to dislike him. I mean, honestly, I think the first time I watched it, I disliked him, and honestly, Jim Carrey's character is just as bad.
Yeah.
You just like them enough that I just didn't want to watch the movie anymore. But if you know it's leading to something, you can hang in there for 10 or 15 minutes. But when you have to hang in there for half an hour,
40 minutes of an hour and 40-minute movie.
Yeah, or maybe even longer than that. Maybe it was like 50 minutes before that switch.
Yeah.
It was definitely at least halfway through.
Yeah.
It's just a long time to deal with.
It is.
a character who you're just like, there's just nothing.
There's nothing,
good
no
about
redeeming.
him. And it's there's funny bits. I mean, it's funny in the way that he went so far. I mean, that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying about the humanity, and maybe just a little bit,
Yeah.
so you still see the switch.
Yeah.
But
And it's like be terrible to one person, not everybody. But it's like that seems like it might be a fix where, you know, he's mad at his partner, but he also is a womanizer, and it's like there's just no redeeming qualities for him to like. There's no way to find that space where he had the awe of when it was magic until we get Alan Arkin, and it doesn't allow for Jim Carrey's character, who is supposed to be this obnoxious, different magician. We hate Burt Wonderstone enough that I can't hate Jim Carrey. I can't hate his mind rapist thing, which is like
terrible,
that's a terrible name for a TV show and a terrible connotation of like this guy's perspective on life.
Yeah.
So, but I hate Steve Carell so much that I can't get on board with it.
Yeah, you're right. Like you were supposed to hate him too, but you. Yeah. Well, there's not enough buildup. You don't see him enough. You don't see as many interactions with him. You just kind of know he's a little bit of an asshole too.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, you're supposed to hate him. You do kind of hate him, but you don't know him enough to really hate him. Like we've seen Steve Carell's character do so many things. Makes you hate him a little bit more every time.
My bucket of hate is full by
Yes.
the time we get there.
Yeah.
It's like this thing's full. I can't feel any more in here.
Yeah, you just don't want to hate him a little bit. Yeah.
So I really like. Let's talk about Jim Carrey. So I mean, his choices are they're grandiose in the sense that they're obnoxious. Not obnoxious. They're not like grandiose in the fact that we've seen him do all this kind of stuff before. He's got a lot of his choices are reeled in, but they're just so intense. Like he has dialed up the intensity of the small things that he's doing up to a 12 and a 13 instead of just a 10. Like it's not much, but it's so intense. It's entertaining.
I think he did really good in his character. I think you've hit the nail.
The nail on his head.
The head on the nail, whatever however you say it. Yes. Where it's not his character that we really need to change it all. It was fixing the Burt Wonderstone character just a bit to make Jim Carrey's character stand out and what it was supposed to be. But I mean, you're right. It was like super intense. I mean, he is. I've watched some of those magician shows before, like David Blaine and all that kind of stuff, and he does he's like, it's up a notch or two, but it's like right in that same lane of what they do, and they're kind of talk quietly, and they're like very serious, and like,
this moment I'm gonna blow your mind.
I mean, he did a really good job, and I actually liked the way they made him, like with the long hair and like the tattoos and the weird stuff going on. I don't know.
I think the costuming and the makeup design on this movie was pretty fun. Like the long flowy hair of Burt Wonderstone.
It kind of changes, but it's always poofy.
Yeah, and then of course Jim Carrey
in
with
the
that
velvet suit,
half bleached blonde hair.
Roots are growing out.
But like Jim Carrey looks like he got in a lot of really good shape. He was in good shape,
because he had his shirt off a lot.
Yeah, and I'm curious about that because the next movie we'll watch is Kick-Ass 2, which I don't know when it came out right off the top of my head. But he plays a superhero. It came out in 2013, and so I'm wondering if that he was in shape for both of these, and it just happened to work out really well. That he's also
stay in shape,
being his shirtless with that tattoo that goes around.
It's pretty good. He looked good.
It's like wow,
he looked good.
Mr. Carrey is hunky over here, and especially coming from Popper's Penguins or like
God, he looks so different.
Philip Morris.
That hair
it's
alone,
really
and the facial hair too. Yeah, like
gross.
Really makes him look different. So when we bought it in the
on
Amazon, not the trailer. The picture was up
picture
there.
Of it,
I was like, who is who here? Like I could not see which one was any of them. They just to me looked so different. Yeah. Steve Carell especially, like he ends up kind of brown-headed toward the end, but like at one point it's sort of blondish and like kind of long and poofy. Yeah. Like he just looks like a different person completely. And same with Jim Carrey, just totally different. No, Steve Buschemi, you can kind of always see him. Yeah. He has such a different, he's such a unique like look to his face that you usually can point him out. But the other two really threw me. I was like, I don't even know who's in there.
Yeah, I don't get this at all.
Yeah. So no, I mean Jim Carrey, I think he did what he was hired to do, and he did a good job, and he took that character, and and I didn't like him, and that's what we were supposed to not like him, and so he is what it was. That last scene though, when he what's that?
At
that
the bar?
drill in his head.
Oh,
the drill in the head
spoilers.
and then the eye. Yeah, sorry, but that was a lot.
How does he keep that one eye half crying? Was I doing it?
You kind of did it, yes. Yeah, he's really good at only crossing that one eye.
One.
It was funny in the bar scene too when he looks like he levitate and levitate away.
It's a good choice. That was a smart.
It really was really funny.
There's talking about Jim Carrey's eyes. There's a moment that we get where he's like, I think it's the very first one when we meet him, and he's doing his card trick where he cuts his cheek and he's staring into the camera.
Yeah.
You can see him doing that thing where he wells up his eyes and he's about to cry kind of thing.
Yeah,
and he's staring at a fake camera in a fake TV show for the movie.
Yeah.
But he still is able to just hit it and be like, tear. It's there it is. There's the Jim Carrey eyes.
He knows how to do it.
We've come to watch and we love so much.
It's different in that one though, because normally I'm always drawn in by it and that. For that one, he was just doing so many gross things that I'm always sort of like this.
Yeah.
And so I know what part you're talking about. I don't really remember being his eyes, like I am lots of times.
Yeah, it was. I think it's right after he cut his cheek open or something like that. It's just so gross. That must have been a fun part for him to play, because it is definitely different than what he normally does. I mean, he normally does this really silly stuff, and he, like you said, you have to pull it in and up the intensity, and totally different from what his normal MO kind of thing is. So I thought he did great. Yeah, I mean,
maybe he's copying what he sees from the other ones, but. In any case,
other
it was
magicians.
good.
I wonder how much research he did into David Blaine and all these other guys.
Sure,
He's just watching them all the time.
I feel like he combined them all and was that person.
Yeah.
So.
We did get to see him also provide us some larger moments, like at the table, the magician's show at the kids' magician show. I'm having a real hard time spitting my words out. Where he does hammer the nail into the table
with his head.
He's like, "This is how I do my summer cottage." And it's just he's still able to throw himself around
a little bit.
As good as
all I saw was
has.
hair, because he's so much hair. I didn't even see him do it. It's just hair and then hair,
and then he's backing on the ground.
Yeah. So I always think of him as he did do that, but he always does that kind of backwards bend thing, and he didn't really have to do that in any way or.
Yeah. He was a sick individual. Yeah. Everyone was so messed up in this one. I think Olivia Wilde and Alan Arkin probably were the two strongest actors in this movie. In just how much I feel connected with them, because they are they are real people.
I don't necessarily think. That's what it was. I mean, they feel like you like. I know that person, or I like that person, or that they're real people. Yeah. I don't know if it makes them a better actor.
No, but I mean Olivia Wilde, I think, is a phenomenal actress.
I think she is too, and she is very likable. And I don't. Yeah, she probably even could have had a bigger part. Yeah. Honestly,
I was reading that they were waiting to hear from Jessica Biel when they were originally casting it, but they ended up going with her. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to research this a whole lot before the episode, just because we've both been doing crazy stuff. But just a quick glance at Wikipedia is the script went through a lot of changes and years of development, rewriting, and 15 drafts over a 3.5 year period.
That's a lot.
And it's there were 4 different endings, 4 different final acts, one where Holloway is revealed as a betrayer. It looks like they had so much just thrown at the paper and thrown at the script so many different ways and rewrites. And Michael Schur even helped and produced for The Office with Steve Carell. He had a rewrite of a script too, and it's just that might be why there seems to be so many things that are okay, this is taking forever, we need to get to it, and it's well, we have to have this funny bit in here, we have to have this understanding, we have to have this. So just a cursory glance at that development sounds like it was terrible, and explains maybe why the characters are so unlikable, and we don't have a real connection to them so early on where we should have them.
Yeah. I'm still not clear on why it's not as good as it should be. And it is odd. But you're right. Maybe there was just, there's like, oh, well, that's funny. We need to keep that in. Well, sometimes you got to cut stuff.
Yeah.
And then it makes the other stuff even more funny. Even though you have to cut a funny bit.
Yeah.
Even like the bar with like Jay Moore and that other guy. I don't know who that is.
They're supposed to be I think
the
they're
lowest
supposed to be,
level
but they work with big
comedians.
cats. And so.
Yeah, like they're comedians.
Yeah.
I mean, not comedians, magicians too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need them or not. I mean, they had like when that first scene in the bar with Jay Moore, like everything he came out of his mouth, I thought was hilarious. Yeah. Like, cause he just wasn't like making.
He says something. He says something to make himself sound real good, but then he can't maintain it.
Get it out.
Just like
the funniest line though, we both laughed at. It was like he was like saying that he was making a webisode to get more interest, and they're like, and then Steve Carell's like, well, I don't know what that is. What's a webisode? He's like, you don't know what that is? And he's like, it's like TV without the hassle of anyone watching it. Yeah. And I was like, because you think it's gonna like be a real thing, and I'm like, that's really funny.
That is a great thing. And now look at us. Look at our webisodes of Jim Carrey Project. Come check it out.
Watch it.
What are we doing? We're doing this for fun and because we wanted to have a project that we get to work together on. And also, if people enjoy watching it, they'll watch it. That was I liked him a lot.
There was some funny bits,
Moore.
but like I'm not sure they really needed that character. Yeah. I don't really know if they needed that time of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think just what God, if they could just cut out, how long was it? An hour?
It was an hour and 40 minutes.
So if they could cut out maybe 20 minutes of stuff, I think I would, in the early part of the movie, I think I would have just enjoyed the whole thing a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's I think you could have an understanding of like why Steve Carell is doing what he is, but I don't know if we necessarily needed like a whole lot of the story to build up. But it's also just like you have to shift this story to get people on board, and you start with Steve Carell as an adult, and he's already so dislikable that it just needs a shift. You can keep a bunch of the stuff in there; it's just a shifting of things like that.
Because normally, even when you watch a movie about a bad person or someone you're not supposed to like, they usually sometimes start off good, and then it shows how they've become bad or why they're bad. Or I mean, even in like Marvel movies and stuff like that. Like lots of times, there's even some backstory for that, so you kind of understand it. Where I don't know.
I
don't know what to say.
I'm curious what you think about the love story between Steve Carell and Olivia Wilde. Like is it
plausible?
When they finally got to a point where he has grown as a person.
Yeah.
He's just been entertaining her Nana. Like that seems to be like the only thing that really like made her want to accept to be around him. I know he apologized, but he was a terrible person for so long.
But remember she told a story about how she saw him, and that's like how the Alan Arkin character was for him. That's what he is for her. He's the one who made her want to become a magician. Mm-hmm. So I mean, obviously, sounds like he's a lot older than her, but I don't know, it didn't seem to be an issue. But
Steve Carell didn't fall in love with Alan Arkin and have a sex scene.
But I think she, like you were saying, why would she even like him? But she worked on his show before she was the assistant.
Yeah.
Just because I think she always liked him. She always had a crush on him. Mm. And even though he was sort of an ass, and just, I think, looked up to him.
Yeah.
So she was always looking for a reason to like him, but he just was such an ass. Yeah. She just kept saying no. And then once he finally was nice enough, she'd be like, okay, yes, I actually do really like you. I guess she could accept it.
He realizes that as somebody without all of his wealth and stuff, that he does have to be a better person and appreciate her and appreciate people, right?
So, I think that relationship was okay. Yeah. Maybe it could have been developed a little bit more, but it was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't too weird.
It wasn't weird.
I thought the Steve Buschemi character was interesting. And actually, when you were saying the likability for some of them, he actually is pretty likable.
Yeah, Steve Buschemi.
Because he's never really an ass like Carell is.
Yeah, he just has had to put up with it for so long, but he also, I guess his character never really changes from what we see him as a child, where he's like kind of awkward, kind of weird, and he kind of tags along with Burt Wonderstone, and they're best friends, but it's also like this weird parasocial relationship that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You're right. His character doesn't have to develop. He sort of is the same character.
Yeah. The knowledge that he's like, they didn't want magic. They want like all the kids in Cambodia didn't want magic.
That
they
was
wanted
funny.
food and water.
Yeah, like he just doesn't get it.
Yeah,
but he's still he's like sweet still. He's still like a nice person generally.
Yeah, gives the bartender the $100 when the other comedian is being a jerk or whatever. Or the magician is being a jerk.
Totally. So
the old lady who plays the Nana is one of the funnier characters when she's like just starts tearing up about her bracelet gun. What else?
There's some funny. There's really some funny parts.
Yeah, there are. I don't know. There's some moments though where I was very critical about like after Steve Carell is watching the TV of when he's in the apartment, he turns it off and he sits in this emotional moment, but there's no light on him, and so he can't see him. It's like there's some technical things about this movie that are also like, wait, I missed that. It's so funny. I love Alan Arkin's character when he's trying to when he's in the hospital.
Which was funny because we actually get it, like we're introduced to him as he actually is a really good magician. Yeah. Like he's teaching Carell, Burt Wonderstone, real things, and you get the impression he's really good until he does that final act, and then
my last disappearing.
He's under the bed, but, like not doing a very good job at all. Like that was a little disappointing.
Yeah, they even call it out. He's like, he's under the bed. I know.
Goodbye.
With his back away. And stuff. You've got to have that sense of the suspension of disbelief of them even having to have the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I think you need to go into this movie like accepting the absurdity of a lot of the situations and just find humor in that. Like you don't go in this thinking it's a real it's sort of a real emotional story. I mean, there's some emotion obviously into it, and that does help, but I think maybe I could have had a different mindset starting off. I would have enjoyed the beginning of it more. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I was looking at the ratings on it, and we're talking about going to that mindset and understanding why it's good. There's somebody who is a Time Magazine movie editor or movie critic or whatever. And they suggest that this might be the kind of semi-bad, semi-inspired comedy that could not only stand repeated viewings, but perhaps improve with them. So that you see some of the moments that like James Gandolfini creates as this weird like Las Vegas like hotel owner or Doug, or like a lot of the moments that they share. And just how absurd, how quick it is that he starts freaking out in the box. It's been 20 minutes, and like there's so many fun moments in it that maybe you get a little bit more watching it again.
I can see that.
I'm not gonna watch it again.
I don't think I'm gonna watch it again either. I wouldn't say like if I went to someone's house and they're like, we're watching this, I'd sit down and watch it, but I'm probably not gonna put it on myself. But I think that could be right because, like I said, I thought there were so many funny parts, and there's probably some that I missed too, or like just the nuances of it. Yeah,
there's almost some cringe comedy. There's some nuanced like bits, and there's the repeated bits of like the magician stuff. But I also always feel like it's these people in these movies, the producers and whoever wrote this movie are making fun of a world of Las Vegas and like that kind of entertainment that I have no idea about. I can't base any. I have no base of knowledge of like what it actually means to like work on there. I've worked on stage. I've seen David Blaine, but I feel like they're writing this movie kind of from that same perspective of like, oh yeah, it's funny because it's Vegas, but it's like, well, what do you know about
some people
Vegas?
Really like those shows. Like I said, I've seen Penn and Teller, and I've also seen Siegfried and Roy. Yeah, and like that's kind of why you go to Vegas. Like you should go see shows like that, but you're right, it is a little like you gotta know what to accept. Like you don't go in thinking it's gonna be serious. You know it's gonna be over the top.
Yeah, it's gonna be
almost silly.
It's Vegas. It's of course it's
I think that's kind of fun that that's how they were sort of making fun of him.
But it's like I just don't have the knowledge of like, that's the stereotype. It's just I think it's all based for me particularly. It was just like based on what I think the stereotypes would be, and then amping those up a little bit more. Yeah. So maybe you
just need to go to Vegas more.
Maybe
I don't know.
No thanks. Been twice, once, twice.
Some people really
3 times a late in Vegas. I don't
there you go.
Do it. What's your? Let's go ahead. We'll do box office. Real quick. So This movie had a budget of $34 million, and I'm curious how much of that goes to Jim Carrey or to the other ones, because if it was the $20 million...
They had a lot of big names.
Yeah, like Gandolfini, Olivia Wilde. I don't know where she was in her career at this point, but this was
probably didn't get paid as much as the other ones.
Yeah, this was definitely post Bruce and Evan Almighty and everything like that.
Carrell would have probably made the most money.
Yeah, Buschemi has Buschemi, so he's been in everything. And then Alan Arkin, he's been around forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had a budget of $34 million, and they made a box office of $27.4. So it's just like,
I'm surprised because I think the reason I watched it, I was like, well, God, everyone in here is like funny, and the idea seemed funny.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get through it. So I'm surprised people didn't go watch it, and then, I guess word of mouth eventually gets out, and you're like, well, you probably shouldn't see that. Wait for it to come out on DVD if you really want to see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, this was released at South by Southwest in March 2013, and then United States on March 15th. So that's late St. Patrick's Day. So
that's South by Southwest here.
So yeah, I know it's South by Southwest, but it's like that also that time period. It's like that. Release at South by.
Like the type of movie they would usually start.
That's kind
there.
of what I was thinking.
I always think of being more like independent.
Yeah,
like
it does. Maybe
not
that's
big
why.
Maybe a big star did it independent, but
maybe that's why people didn't go see it when it was released nationwide. Where it's like, oh, we saw it at South by.
Well, and then you're gonna have people. People are gonna be very harsh critics.
Yeah.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you already have all those big names.
Yeah.
Like you expect to be blown away, I think.
And it's not one of the movies. It is like I wouldn't get up and leave this movie because I wanted like to see kind of where it ended. But like if I hadn't paid, if somebody was like, we're gonna do this screening of it, I've only ever walked out of one movie, and it's like it was some what's her name?
It's definitely not that
Yeah,
bad.
no, it's not a walkout, but it's like okay, I'll see this through, but. If I had to watch it again, someone forced it on me. I'd be like, I'm leaving. I'm not going to stick around. Like, you'd stick around and watch it. And
I think I'd watch it.
I'll make fun of it with some other people. So, what do you give it on a rating?
4.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. 3.5, 4.
I think, you have higher expectations because the guys are...
The cast.
Is so funny.
The cast is there.
Yeah.
And it's like...
So that's even more disappointing. Mm-hmm. So...
It's a little sad. Rotten Tomatoes.
Pretty much the same.
38% from Tomato Meter, 33% audience score.
Yeah.
IMDb, it has a 5.9 out of 10. So
that's higher.
It is a little higher than I thought it would be. Yeah, 1 hour and 40 minutes, PG-13. I could probably. I could watch Olivia Wilde all day though.
Yeah,
she's
great.
So gorgeous.
She is great. I wonder if like wannabe magicians think it's an amazing movie.
Do they like this movie a lot?
Is that
more?
Like the magician movie? Because there's not that many, So yes,
I don't even
there's
know.
finally one that understands what I'm going through.
Now I'm curious. When did what is it? The Prestige come out? Did you ever see that one? The Prestige.
Is that a magician movie?
It came out in 2006. So right in that time in 2006, there was The Prestige, and then there was another movie where the studios released basically the same kind of movie at the same time.
Really?
One of them was Hugh Jackman, and I think this Prestige was Hugh Jackman and Chris. What's his name? The cast is right there. Christopher Nolan directed it.
What was the point you were making, though?
So I'm wondering if we had these actual dramatic magician movies in 2006.
Right.
I thought they were closer where they get made, but then now we have this one that is the more
absurd
and making fun of it a whole lot more.
I have to see that. I don't know
Prestige was really good, and then there's another one that came out, and I can't think of it right off the bat. But Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale are phenomenal in it.
Cool.
So cool, yeah.
What was your rating? Did you say?
3.5.
Oh right, yeah.
So if this was on TV and I was hungover and I couldn't reach the remote, I would watch it again.
And doze through it.
And doze on and off, and hopefully see the good parts where it's the little magician, the magic, the golf ball tricks were fun, and the salt thing. Where Alan Arkin slams the salt, pepper,
magic too. I like the magic part of it.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I think that'll go ahead and we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you guys for tuning in to watch us talk about the incredible Burt Wonderstone. Ooh. Please like, subscribe, comment, listen to us wherever you get podcasts. Share us with your friends. Share us with your enemies. Let us know if you know of other magician movies in comments or ratings, and tell us what you think about them.
That'd be cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
Was there anything else? I don't think so.
No, nothing else that's important enough.
Nothing else that's important enough. So thanks again for watching out. Be cool to each other. Be kind to each other.
See you later.
Bye. Smoke. Bye.
Yeah, our final disappearing act. We're just like, ah!